for joining us. Real talk, real faces, real conversations here from all our places. Real perspectives rise when we make the time. Different minds, same table, one seat, one light. Open train of thought, come right along. Open train of thought, we keep it on strong. Open train of thought, where voices belong. Open train of thought. Welcome to the conversation.
Welcome to the Open Train of Thought podcast. I'm Sam Blue Sr. Thank you for joining us for real conversations, real perspectives with real people. Tonight, we welcome Marvin Bennett Jr., host of the Marvin Bennett Jr. Show. He joins us to discuss tonight's topic. Our goal is to challenge assumptions and encourage an honest, thoughtful, and respectful conversation. So please help me in welcoming Marvin Bennett Jr. to the show.
Good
How's it
evening.
going, bro?
Hey, what's good, man? I'm doing another blessed day, man.
I really appreciate you taking the time and joining us tonight. Just ask that you just comment any questions you have, any questions you have for our guest panelists, and we'll try to get to those as we see them in the comments. Is there anything you'd like to just tell the viewers about yourself?
Man, no, I'm just a regular dude. You know what I'm saying? My name is Marvin Bennett, by way of Newark, New Jersey, representing, living in North Carolina. Congratulations to my Knicks. We still celebrating our NBA championship, first one in 53 years. But, you know, other than that, I'm just a father, friend, here for everybody. You know what I'm saying? I love to have a conversation. And thank you for having me on your show as well.
Oh, I appreciate that. Before we get started, I'm going to go ahead and play the disclaimer just so we're covered, legally. We don't want to get sued by nobody. So let me play the disclaimer real quick and we'll get started.
This podcast is for informational and entertainment purposes only. Views expressed are those of the host and guest and do not represent any organizations. Discussions on politics, policies, and current events are based on opinions and available information, which may change. This podcast does not provide professional advice, so listeners should research and verify information independently. Host and guests are not liable for any decisions or outcomes based on the content.
So I'm going to play a quick video. This is about the WNBA and some of the things that's going on. And what we'll do is, I'm going to ask you a few questions and just get your thoughts on it.
Mm-hmm.
Women's professional basketball, now a flashpoint in the culture wars after Indiana Fever guard Sophie Cunningham called limiting women's sports to biological females common sense.
When it comes just to protecting young girls in sport and women in sport, I feel very strongly about that.
This past Sunday in Chicago, demonstrators on both sides rallied outside the United Center. The WNBA Players Association did not mention Cunningham directly, but put out a statement denouncing hate, abuse, and demonization of the transgender community. And now, in an apparent effort to make a point, two former NBA players say they want to play for the WNBA. Inez Cantor-Freedom announcing Monday he's officially signed the paperwork to declare for the draft.
Well, it's official. I am definitely not here to mock, make fun of, or disrespect any community or personal choices. And I look forward to the WNBA honoring its stated principles. See you at training camp.
Royce White planning to join the WNBA draft as well.
I identify as sometimes identifying as a woman, and I don't want to be discriminated against. No, I want fair treatment. I mean, I'm 260 pounds, 265 pounds, 6'8".
We spoke with Jennifer Say, founder of XXXY Athletics, an apparel brand focused on protecting women's sports, about the issue.
They've been messing all sorts of things up, but now they're really in a tough spot because they have to decide what they're going to do about these two men who are declaring for the 2027 draft. I think it's hilarious. It lays bare the absurdity of this entire ideology.
WNBA Commissioner Kathy Engelbert reportedly told teams a task force is expected to take up the issue of transgender athlete participation in the league at a meeting this week.
So should the WNBA clearly define what qualifies someone to compete as a woman in the league?
All right. First of all, abso-freaking-lutely. They need to make it clear as to how do they define a woman. And I absolutely love this. I absolutely love this by Royce White and Enos Canner. You know, we be having conversations amongst our peers and whatnot, and people like, I don't get it. I absolutely love it because I'm like 50 Cent. That's why I'm a 50 Cent fan. I love pettiness. I love pettiness, and all of this could be avoided if the WNBA would just clearly state and define what constitute as being a woman or eligible, just like any other job. You know what I mean? When you fill out an application, it's clear these are your responsibilities, these are your duties. Either you apply for the job or you don't. You know what I mean? I don't understand what makes it so complicated because they want to be so sensitive to all these different variations. You know what I mean? To say, well, we don't want to ostracize anybody. Well, what that does is now you create this unnecessary backlash because you don't want to clearly define. You don't want to stand on principle. But absolutely, they should, in my opinion, especially around when it comes to sports in general, right? I don't care, and let's be clear before I get taken out of context, I respect anybody right to do whatever they want to do, live their life however they want to live. Like the old saying goes, "What you eat don't make me poop." you know what I mean? So at the end of the day, however, you got to identify whatever you want to. Having said that, I would like to identify as a billionaire. But my bank statement doesn't agree with that. You know what I mean? I think that I think for me personally, when it comes to all sports across the board, it doesn't matter what you identify as. What does your birth certificate classify you as? You know what I mean? And that's how you move accordingly. You know what I mean? You can do whatever after the fact, and we're not going to ostracize you. But when you're talking about competition, let's be clear: men are not better than women, but we are clearly different. I don't want to see a man in women's sports competing with other women, just like I don't want to see women competing with men. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So, based off what you just said, and then I want to ask you this, get your answer, and then I'm going to offer, some of my personal opinion.
Mhm.
So, is the WNBA damaging or potentially destroying its own future by allowing political and cultural controversies to overshadow basketball, player development, competition, and the league growth?
Destroying now, I wouldn't be so clear, or I'm not so sure that they would be destroying the image, so to speak. However, I did see a friend post this last week, literally last week, and he said, "Mark my words, this will be the beginning of the end of the WNBA." Now, having said that, I'm not a person that really partakes in the NBA. I don't really I don't watch them at all. So I don't really know about it. In the early days, I was a big Liberty fan, and now I went to the Liberty first game at MSG. I was a big supporter of it, and I'm all for women's sports. I have nothing against the WNBA. It's just not my cup of tea. You know what I mean, so to speak. Having said that, though, I do believe that I'm not sure, but I think that it can be because, like I said, with this whole Royce White situation, Enos Cantor, I love what they're doing. I love what they're doing. You know, put the pressure on them to define what classifies as a woman. You know what I mean? Because if not, why not? Once you get tired of playing the NBA or the Big Three or overseas or whatever, I identify as a woman. And now, if they don't make it clear, you're gonna have this. It's gonna be like the WNBA possibly could become like a second tier league, like the G League. You know what I mean? Where you got all these people. If all it takes is me to say I identify as a woman, what's to stop all these dudes or the people that can't make it to the NBA? Say, I'm gonna go over there to the WNBA. Now you're forcing the women out of their own sport, all because you wanna, not clearly define what a woman is. So it could in the long term, it could be doing damage. I can see that.
I think the issue of equality, I think everybody wants equality,
Mm-hmm.
but everybody doesn't want equity. And for me, the difference between equality is, okay, we have an even playing field. Equity is basically just the appearance. So if we throw a lot of money at something, okay, as long as we put this money, that's equity. Like there's not always a good or positive outcome for equity. But when it comes to the WNBA, I think they are trying to tiptoe the line not to offend anybody. And it kind of seems to me like they turn every little thing, like, I'm not sure if you've watched WNBA highlights, but literally the highlights for the entire league will take up the same amount of time that one NBA game takes up. Because I've sat there and I've watched games, and it's just bricks after bricks after it, minus a handful of players. And I just don't think that with them trying to trail the line to not be offensive to anybody is going to be their downfall, because now nobody is focusing on the game. Everybody is focusing on white and black. Anything negative has to be racist. There has to be something that has to do with racism. And I think what Kenner, Royce White, I think Beasley mentioned he may even try it.
Yeah.
The thing is because the new collective bargaining agreement, the WNBA players get like $500K, averaging $500K now. It is up from like $70K. In the G League, the highest you get paid is like $75K a season. So you're going to have all these guys in the G League identifying as a woman just so they can get $500,000 for a season that's only half. I think the WNBA games are there's only 42 games in the season. So I understand to me, they spend too much time in politics, in trying to protest, in trying to do all these things, when what sells the men's game is the athleticism, the performance, the actual action of the game, not what they're doing off the court. If somebody is doing something off the court positive, then that's a plus. But I haven't seen any NBA teams not come out during the national anthem. I haven't seen any NBA teams, like, I'll land with this. Even the females in the WNBA, they try to rag on the brothers in the NBA because they're saying, oh, you don't support us. Like, a lot of these brothers got family, after the game, they want to chill. But I remember Luka, he was down and he had posted the Rookie of the Year. He said, congratulations. And the Dallas Wings posted, yeah, at least it'd be nice if you came to games. And next thing you know, they're like, he's been to 7 games this year. Like, he's supporting you. I look at Kyrie Irving. During COVID, Kyrie Irving gave a few million of his salary to pay the WNBA players, who weren't playing. And when all that stuff came out with Kyrie about the COVID shot and stuff like that, no WNBA players came to his rescue, to take up for him. Nobody. And now all this stuff is coming out like he was right, but nobody is saying I'm sorry. But I just think that it's the players themselves that have put more. They have put more on the ownership. They have put more on everything else outside of the game.
Let me ask you this real quick before we move on. Do you think that they, as an NBA player or franchise, and your city has a sister league team representative, do you think that you should be obligated to support the WNBA as an NBA player?
Well, the thing is, they do. They've been for almost 30 years, since the WNBA came, and then I think it went away. Like, it did so bad, they were losing so much money because it wasn't a sound business decision that they had shut it down, and then they restarted it like 5 years after that. Because I remember we went to Charlotte Sting games, and they shut down, I think it was 2009. But we was going there in like 2005, 2006, and basically you go there, the game was free. You just show up, and they was handing out like $20, $25 concession vouchers. So
Wow.
everybody was going to the games because they got these free vouchers. But women are basically 51% of the population. If women supported the WNBA, they would sell out every game. And they wouldn't sell out in them little coliseums. They would sell out the biggest arenas, but women aren't even supporting the WNBA. Everybody that I know goes to a WNBA game. They only go to the game because they know personally one of the players on one of the teams, or they just want to mark it on their bucket list. Okay, I went to a game. Now I can put it on my social media and say I support women. And that's literally the only people I know that go to games. The ones that go, they don't pay for the tickets. They're given the tickets. If you're given the tickets, you're not supporting. Like if you start a business, I'm not supporting you if I ask you for a discount. I'm wanting, if I pay you in full, okay, I'm supporting, I'm supporting Marvin. But yeah, I just think is going to continue to go downhill. I mean, I look at like the referees are horrific in the WNBA. And I'm talking every game I see, the plays, the calls that are missed, like blatant. It's like they're the year that the NBA, the referees had boycotted. And then they got those replacements, and then the players were like, "No, we got to work this CBA out because these replacement refs aren't it." It's like the level of the refs in the WNBA are that same level. It's like they AAU refs.
I think what it is too, when in terms of that, I think a lot of it has to do with, I think they're trying to find a way to, more or less get more people included. You know what I'm saying? As far as like when you think about it, all the different rules that comes along within the NBA, the WNBA. I noticed even like when I was see different clips on sports shows or whatnot here and there, it seems like they're allowing a lot more physicality, and I think that's due to them possibly saying, okay, look, we want to get more viewership up. People love the drama. You know what I mean? So let's let them get away with a little bit more to entice more viewership. You know what I mean? I'm not saying that that's what it is, but it's definitely a possibility.
I'm fine with that if it's across the board. Like there was one game where I'll use Caitlin Clark for example. A week ago, she was fouled, she was pushed, and her momentum took her out of bounds, and she ran into the ref. Not hard, just like touched the ref. The ref called a T. They later rescinded that, but then they showed where the same ref had got grabbed by a player who didn't like that ref's call, and the ref didn't call nothing. My thing is this: as long as, and we look at the NBA, when you hear the NBA players talk, they talk the same way. I know there's going to be bad calls. Just make sure you calling it both ways. That's all you hear NBA players say. It's like, we understand y'all human. We understand like certain things may be missed. Certain things may be excessive, but make sure you just do it both ways. And I just think that any little thing, they just blow up. Like, like I just got turned off. I tried to support the other night. I was watching, but people need to understand the WNBA doesn't have new fans. They just got Angel Reese fans. They just got Caitlin Clark fans. They just got Cameron Brink Megan Betts, they have their own fans that have come in and just follow them. They're not following the game, because these players aren't at that stage like Jordan, Magic. The NBA wasn't really doing well before Bird and Magic. It was doing okay, but it wasn't doing nowhere near what it's doing now. But Bird and Magic brought in their own fans from Michigan State and Indiana. They brought them in, but then the game got elevated to the point where it started attracting fans. Then the next phase was when Michael Jordan came in. There was all these Jordan fans now, and that made people gravitate to the game as a whole. And I think the WNBA, they're sleeping on that. They're sleeping on it, and they're just doing things that just don't make sense. Like, you look at their draft. I mean, how is Azzy Flood the number one pick when you got Lauren Betts? But they wanted Paige Beckers basically said, I need my girlfriend on the team, or I'm probably going to leave to where she's at, when my contract over. Like, there's no way that Azzy Fudd should have been the dang on number one pick over Megan Betts, a 6'7" dominant center, and Dallas is weak down low. So it's just a lot of the stuff is obvious, and it's like more of their relationships interfere. Like who's the DeWanna Bonner when she was with Indiana? She wanted to be with her girlfriend. So she just stopped showing up for games. Then they basically just cut her. And then she ended up playing, with Alyssa Thomas, her girlfriend.
Mm-hmm.
So I just think like they allow they allow so much off the court stuff to overshadow their actual game.
Yeah.
You agree or disagree with that?
Somewhat. Like I said, I don't really have a valid opinion on it because I don't watch enough of the WNBA, to be honest with you. Now, however, like, my family is a big women's basketball advocate. You know what I mean? I actually met my ex-wife at a high school basketball tournament. You know what I mean? Because she played high school basketball. So my support for women's basketball goes way back. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
However, as a matter of fact, my youngest son, he'll be going to the Dallas Wings game next year. So shout out to my son Elisha. He actually travels to see, the WNBA players, and it's a big sport of the game.
However, tell me if this is true or false.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of those teams that he going to support, does he personally know players on that team?
Absolutely, he do.
So is he supporting that team, or is he supporting the players that that he know real well?
Actually, it's a little of both. Like, he could get tickets for free, but he actually pays for his ticket. He pays for his own airfare, to get out there to actually show support. So it's not like he just, let me go to this game because I got some free tickets. You know what I mean? Even though he could, he's so much of an advocate of women's basketball. He said, no, I appreciate it, but get that to a kid that need it. I come out of my own pockets, to support not just you, but the league. So shout out to him. Hats off to him. I'm not making that level of commitment.
Yeah, I understand.
You know what I mean? I support the ones that I can. I go support people that I know. But like you say, they do have fans that are out there. I won't take that away because I know another young lady. She travels all over, and she don't even know these people personally. But one week she's in Atlanta for a game. She might go up to Cleveland. Like, she's a big supporter. So they definitely have fans. But it's just like, don't make me feel bad, you know what I mean? Because I'm not into what you're into. You know what I mean? Don't try to guilt trip me into, you just hating on women's basketball. No, that's not the case. I was flipping through the channels the other night, right? And I looked, I'm like, I can't believe this is real. So I actually called my brother to ask him to turn to ESPN2 to make sure that I wasn't tripping. They had something called something about some stairs where they're lubricating the stairs, and you gotta try to get up to the top of the stairs. Like, this is on ESPN2 prime time, and I'm like, who came up with this? Like, nobody wants to see this. I don't want to see pickleball on TV. I don't want to see, you know what I mean? But it
Yeah.
doesn't mean that I'm hating on it either, because I don't care about it. We don't see nobody advocating for cricket in the United States.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Is the WNBA walking a thin line between protecting its business and supporting its players? And when political activism conflicts with fans, like there's something where I think there's a mother and daughter that's about to sue because security had them cover up their. It was like the first overtime had them cover up their shorts, and it was like an XXXY shirt, basically saying that no boys should be playing against girls. So they made them cover up their shirt, and they were sitting in like $1,000 seats. But I think right there is like you get to a point where you can't be so ticky tack. Like Dejanay, the other night, like she fouled somebody, and something happened, and the fan was like, "Yeah, that's why y'all got blown out by Indiana or something." So she goes to the refs and then security to have the guy removed. Now he courtside. So I know he paid money for them seats, at a game like that. I think it was Chicago Sky in Indiana. And he came right back in because they're like, when they looked at the film, the replay, he all he did was say like brick, keep shooting bricks. And that was it. But she said he called her a racist B and all that to get him ejected out the game. So now that's taking more attention than the actual game.
But I think that's just a microcosm of society in itself. You know what I mean? Yeah. We see LeBron James do it all the time. It's like, dude, it comes with the territory. That's one of the things
about. But hold on real quick. That hat you wearing, one of the biggest. Who is the biggest heckler in NBA history? Spike Lee.
Mm-hmm.
Look how he used to go after Jordan. Look how he used to go after Reggie Miller. Look how he used to get in his face. The players now, when I see LeBron saying, "Oh, he said I suck," or he insulted me, he needs to get out the game. Like this new league, not even WNBA, NBA, it's come to the point to where everything is about feelings.
Like, and that's what I was saying. That's it's just, to me, is an example of society as a whole. We talk about these different. Everybody needs to feel included. All these participation trophies, so to speak. Well, I got a ribbon and all this here. I remember my son playing in a basketball tournament, and the lady out there, the lady was literally in the stand. I'm not making this up. This is a true life story. She said, "Yeah, this is my baby," and this here and that there. Yo, Sam, the boy was out there on the court with church shoes on. He didn't even have sneakers on. He had actual hard bottom church shoes on. And she wanted him to get the same recognition as the star player on the team. And I'm like, no, we got to stop this. But I think that's the way society is, even outside of sports. Everything is so conducive to protecting everybody's feelings. Everybody has a right to feel. We don't want to hurt anyone's feelings. We want to be sensitive to everyone's needs. And it's like, it's making us soft as a people, period. Because I don't even want to go there. But yeah, I think we worry about this, not just the WNBA. I think we just worry about society. And you don't have to be disrespectful. You know what I mean? But definitely. We come up from an era, I hate getting older because, we sound like the old dude back in our day. Yeah. You know what I mean? But it really was, and it taught us to be the men that we are. It taught us that it's okay to cry. There's nothing wrong. It doesn't make you less of a man if you cry, but don't always be in your feelings. And everybody doesn't have to respect your feelings or your point of view. But nowadays we living in a society where everybody, if you don't agree with me, then you hating on me. And that's not necessarily the truth. It's just that I don't agree with your opinion. Let's agree to disagree.
Yeah. Oh, definitely. I mean, it's definitely changed. I look at stuff that everything is. I just hate everything is about feelings, and that's making people really not prepared. And I think that would go into like our next topic. Um, about the NBA. The dark side.
Mhm.
So I want to play this clip real quick, and we will speak on it after we watch the clip. But it's a clip with Dwayne Wade's father. Um, who is that?
All
With
ball.
yeah, Lamar Ball, Tristan. Who's that with Boston?
Jaylen Brown dad.
Yeah, yeah. It's basically them talking just about some of their experiences, and it's about 48 seconds.
They act like they're the fathers. I saw dads crying because of that situation.
How do each one of you guys feel about the way they want to divide you guys from your son when you get to that success?
Wow. I've seen it when it started with the draft. Mom got interviewed and sitting right next to it. Nothing was asked of me. We know what it took for us to get our kids there. And if stuff like that is going to break me, then I don't need to be around. It's messed up, but I know my son, how much he cares and loves me. And he knows what we've been through. As long as that matters, I'm good.
I had a hard time when my son first went to the league with them trying to separate the players from the dads or the families. And what I try to do is I try to instill what I learned from my situation is sit back and let them mature. And then, everything will work out.
If you look at any of these superstars, who it's been given from D. Rose not talking to his parents to Kobe not being able to talk to his parents. So you're going to go through that. That's why I asked you that. There's nothing you can just dodge.
All right. So let me ask you, after seeing that video, why do so many professional basketball stories emphasize the athlete's mother while giving less attention to the father, even when the father was actively involved?
Well, first, let me start by saying shout out to all the dads out there, especially the active dads. This isn't something new, right? But I do think that is intentional. I think that is done intentionally. I don't think that it's I think that is definitely premeditated. What is the reasoning for it? I'm not sure. I'm not sure what the reasoning is. But it's definitely something that's not new and it's been taking place for a while. In college basketball, I'm a Tar Heel fan, right? So I don't even like to call them by their name, the school over there in Durham. But this is a perfect example of the hypocrisy. You got Cam Boozer. Boozer was nice in high school. He won on every level. He won at Duke. He was a successful player in the NBA for all these years. You go back to his draft, just his recent draft. Why wasn't he not more involved in the interviews and that part of the process? Like, why is it that? And I don't want to make it a race thing because I don't necessarily know, but it's definitely when it comes to black dads in particular. You know what I mean? Like I remember even in the beginning, in the early age, and I stand corrected. I had to say, I had to check myself. But I remember when LeVar Ball, when Lonzo first made it to the league, I'm like, yo, this dude is doing way too much, man. He needs to chill out. He about to mess it up for his son and all that there. And it's like, looking back now, I'm like, hold up. Like, he was really advocating. And I think that's one of the reasons that Deion gets so much hate. Because Deion is an active father. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And it could be overly done, but at the end of the day, as a father, that's what we do. We're supposed to protect our children, especially in a business and an industry that we know is created to eat them up. Who knows better about the NFL than Deion Sanders? Who knows better about the game of basketball than Carlos Boozer? You know what I'm saying? When you've done it on that level, you would think that they would big them up. I always said it, and it has nothing to do with being a Knicks fan, Drew. But I always wonder if, in terms of the NBA, men's professional basketball, why isn't Jalen Brunson and Rick Brunson a bigger story? You know what I mean? Like, that's what we need to we talk about, especially in our community. We always want to talk about absentee dads and fathers not being there, deadbeats, this and that there, and the mothers. Shout out to the mothers. And I'm not hating on the mothers, but I'm just saying that all mothers don't do it alone. There are active fathers in their life, so don't discredit that. And 9 times out of 10, if your son make it to that level, I didn't see Jalen Brunson's mom in none of those videos when he was in 5th grade, when he was in 6th grade. Yeah, mom might have dropped him off in practice, but it was dad. Hey, boy, get out there and run them hills. Hey, did you do your push-up? Did you get your push-ups in? Hey, arch that shot a little bit more. You know what I mean? So why, if your father played a pivotal role in your coaches, whoever, you know what I mean? Even if it wasn't your biological father, that male figure in your life, if they play such a significant level of you making it to the highest level of your sport or your craft, why not give them their roses? Why would y'all shun them and want the mothers out there on the red carpet with them? Like, I don't understand the ulterior motive. I don't know if they're trying to, less testosterone in our society. We already just talked about, you know what I mean? Everybody's in a sensitivity era, and we got to be cautious of how we protecting other people's feelings. We can't say we don't have freedom of speech anymore because we got to censor our own selves because we don't want to offend anybody. You know what I mean? So I just think that it's kind of crazy. Because he's a perfect example of what I'm talking about. Like, here it is. Not only did he used his father to get him a job. He put his father in a position that Rick was with us first before we signed Jalen. But my point is, you would think that if I was a business, right? Me personally, I would endorse that. You know what I mean? I would want to see more of that. You know what I mean? Fathers and son working together at the highest level. And we just won a championship that wasn't totally first one in 53 years. I think that should be a story, if not an E60 special, a documentary in itself, just because of the father-son relationship and the father once playing for that organization. Has nothing to do with me being a Knicks fan. I just think that is a beautiful story that should be highlighted as a father.
Oh, I think you're a hit on. I tell people, when you look at, when I was researching a lot of this, I looked at the top 10 picks, all the lottery picks in the 2026 NBA draft. Every one of them came from 2-parent households.
Yep.
Like, so I tell folks, like, but when you watch the draft, they always panned away from the father. And I know they're probably thinking about, that really don't matter. My boy made it to the league, things like that. But to me, nobody is saying that women aren't powerful. They don't have a lot of power, but it's kind of like they're trying to visually show us that Black men aren't there, fathers aren't there. It's like they're visually, that's advertisement. The more you flash it across the screen.
Exactly.
Because I look at the same way, like you look at all the sports commentary now. They make sure that they put a female on First Take, on every show. They have mandatory, they have a female. It's mandatory now that the courtside reporter is a female. It's mandatory that they have all of this. But when you look at the WNBA game, all the commentators are women. The only men are the courtside, the courtside action reporter. They're calling the game. But every commentator is all female. So are you telling me you want the NBA to be inclusive and to put women in there, but the WNBA, you want to make sure that we have all women refs, we have all women commentators, we have all women, like you can't be hypocritical. And I think that's where they're feeding into that same thing about, I've talked to you before about, I feel like they're feminizing Black men. Because when you feminize a Black man, he's less likely to reproduce. And to me, that's a part of the destruction. Like you get them not to even want to be attracted to females, then you put all these images on TV to where, okay, we don't have they did it with Obama. Oh, I grew up with a single mother. This joker had two wealthy fathers. His biological father was wealthy, and his stepdad was really wealthy. I think he was almost a billionaire. So the thing is like, but they paint it like it's all about the mother, which again, I'm not trying to disown or disregard that, but you have to give credit where credit is due.
Mhm.
What do you think?
No, I agree. I agree. And you use the terminology that I was looking for. They're trying to desensitize or feminize, so to speak, the black male. You know what I mean? Even when you talked about in terms of this last draft, Ron Harper is a 5-time NBA champion. Why didn't we hear more about him? Even during the playoffs with the run that Dylan was having, the year that he had, possibly could have been in the conversation for the rookie of the year if it wasn't about a popularity contest and things of that nature there. You know what I mean? If it was just on the stats. We ain't hear nothing about Ron. And like I said, he's a 5-time NBA champion.
Yeah.
So he knows what it is. Why are we glorifying that or praising these dads a little bit more? You know what I mean? But I just, like you said, I think, but yet and all, we see stories about, and they'll throw a little LeBron and Bronny out there every once in a while. You know what I mean? But you see more. What's crazy is he doesn't even play anymore. But I literally see more stories about D Wade and his daughter, that transition that was born to son, whatever. I see more stories about that than I do LeBron James and Bronny. And Dwayne Wade isn't even playing anymore. So, like I said, I don't know what the underlying reasoning is or why would they want to do that in terms of us. That's not part of the night's discussion, but we all know why Planned Parenthood was created. Is this another tool with the NBA being so populated with African Americans? And now it's to the point where, you got people from overseas coming. You don't see them trying that with them. You don't see the, you know what I mean? Because it's a whole different culture over there. They're not sustaining that. I laugh. I was having a conversation about the Joker. Joker. One reason I like the Joker so much is because he just want to play basketball. And he want to go home. I remember the year that Denver won the championship. He's like, "What you mean? We gotta go to the parade." Hey, I got horses. I'm about to go back.
He want to race horses. Yeah.
I'm going back to my country. I ain't with all this fanfare that it's not as we're so commercialized in America. You know what I mean? You want the glitz and the glamour and this here and that, the accolades and everything that comes along with it. Where at the end of the day, what is your core? What is your character? What does your principles say about you? As opposed to what happens when the applause stops? What happens when you don't get the championship ring? Are you still committed to the sport? And those, that just different thing there, the underlying, the being that you are. So I think that they're told a lot lie, where we as black men in particular, we have to be that much more vigilant because we see the agenda that they're trying to push on our youth. I think we have to be counterproductive in making sure that we're getting involved with like yourself. You're training people. You're working out. I seen I didn't even know that you know him, but I seen where my boy Danny had shouted you out for working with his son. You know what I mean?
Since Amir was fourth grader.
Yeah. So we just need more of that positive reinforcement, even when it's done locally, whether they make it or not, knowing that we played a part in contributing to our youth and making sure that they become decent young men as well.
Yeah, and that's my biggest thing is we have to be advocates for ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's the issue. Like the stereotype is we want everybody to advocate for us. And I'm like, I said, what happened to black excellence? Like we can advocate for ourselves, but I think that, I definitely think that there's truth behind the NBA wanting it to be a league of, of like they want to be the daddy, they want to be the father. They want to be able to dictate things because you're realizing like Jaylen Brown, like he don't have an agent. You know, like a lot of agents are like, they try to make it mandatory to where you had to have a degree or something, especially when Rich Paul came into it. You know, he was snagging up everybody, and they're like, so they tried to do that rule, but the players was like, he's literally looking out for us. So I just think that we have to look out and bring those stories to light. You know, we have to retweet those things, you know, share, you know, merge, whatever they call, where you know, put it on your story to share someone else's story. And I think
I'm
right
glad you
there,
brought Jaylen Brown up, because I think then think about that. What we're talking about. Why don't they talk about that more? Because a lot of people don't know that. But Jaylen Brown doesn't have an agent. You know, he works out all his deals himself, and it's like they don't want that story to get out because, hold up, if he could do it, why am I paying this joker here 5% and he doesn't do anything? You know, he's working with them. You know what I mean? I try to tell people, you know, even when in terms like the NFL and all, you know, the commissioner is literally hired by the owners. So how can he be objective in a player's dispute when his bosses are the owners? You know what I mean? It doesn't make sense.
Our next topic is centered around Jayden Daniels.
Okay.
And he's another one. All we've seen was Jayden Daniels' mother. You know, sitting between him and Juju and all that. And people don't realize that his father played in the NFL. You know, not the NFL. He was a big star in college, and he coached. And Jayden had always played under him, you know, for the most part till he got to college.
Yeah.
So I'm going to play this clip, and then, you know, we can kind of discuss that. And it's kind of like tying into NIL. Is it empowering, or is it creating it's the word where you just feel it needs it's creating a generation that you feel like everybody is obligated to do what you want. So I'm gonna play that video, and then we'll talk about it.
Daniels have sent a cease and desist letter to LSU because they're going to let sophomore cornerback DJ Pickett wear number 5. Daniels famously wore number 5 when he played at LSU and won a Heisman Trophy there. And basically the ask is not that LSU can't let this sophomore wear number 5, but that they'd like LSU to stop using Jayden Daniels' name, image, and likeness going forward. I have no idea the legalities of this case, but it does open a lot of interesting doors. College football has changed so dramatically with the introduction of NIL, which pays players to use their name, image, and likeness while they play for those teams. Could this create some kind of new precedent where schools that are still using the NIL of former players have to keep playing? I have no idea. What I do know here is that LSU got a new head coach, Lane Kiffin. He's one of the most controversial, polarizing coaches in all of college football. He left Ole Miss last year in season to take the LSU job, even though Ole Miss was going to the college football playoffs. So for Lane Kiffin, his goal is to win this year, and the sophomore cornerback helps him win this year. As for Jayden, I'm pretty surprised this would happen this fast at a school like LSU. Joe Burrow famously also won a Heisman Trophy at LSU. Now, that was back in 2019 when the Tigers also won the national championship. Nobody has worn Burrow's number since 2019. There's a lot of characters involved here. A statement from Daniels' spokesperson said Daniels' family is deeply hurt here. I know this. Jayden Daniels is a football cyborg. He is focused on this season for the Commanders. I do not think this cease and desist letter and whatever else may transpire with the folks in Baton Rouge will have any impact on Daniels' focus this season. There's a lot of moving parts here. As for Commanders fans that are concerned that this might be a distraction for Jayden Daniels, I categorically deny that that will be the case. Jayden Daniels is focused on football.
All right. So before I ask you a question, I just want to mention a couple of facts about Jayden Daniels. He played, I believe, three seasons at Arizona State, and then he transferred 1 year to LSU. And yeah, he did get the Heisman and all that stuff, but for you to expect, it's almost like with LeBron James, I think LeBron James expects to have his jersey retired in LA. He expects to have a statue out front. You know, like he feels the word I was trying to find earlier is entitlement.
Mm-hmm.
So I think I don't know in the history of college sports that there has been a player that played 1 year for a school and got their jersey retired. What do you think?
All right, so it's twofold for me. As far as him suing LSU for cease and desist for the use of his jersey number, I do believe that he has the right to. Now, let me say, I said this when they first talked about the NIL, and I have to be very clear. I've always been a proponent, even back in the 90s when I was playing high school sports. I thought that athletes should be able to be compensated on a college level, if not on a high school level. When you think about the way that these institutions are making so many, I'm talking about millions of dollars off of these children. And back in our day, it was a violation for somebody to buy you a slice of pizza. Make that make sense. Here it is. I'm on this school. I'm coming to this school on academic scholarship, but yet and all, I can't have a job. You know what I mean? And you want to penalize me for taking resources from people. You know what I mean? It makes no sense. However, I did say that when NIL first became a thing, I said it's just a matter of time before it gets out of control, because there's no way to monitor it. And before NIL was a thing, it was like, how do you break it down, so to speak? You know what I mean? You take a school like North Carolina, right? If we start paying the basketball players, well, what does that say about the swim team? What does that say for the soccer team? You know what I mean? And I think it should be generated on who's bringing in revenue. I don't think that the volleyball team should make as much, you know what I'm saying, as the football players, so to speak. Not because it's men, not because it's women. If your school is known as a volleyball school, by all means. You know, you take UConn for an example, maybe 10 years ago or so. Yeah. I would have had no problem with UConn women making way more money than the UConn men's basketball team, because UConn women's basketball was generating the revenue. However, I think it's hypocritical and almost asinine that you would ask a school to not use your name, image, and likeness after you only played there for a year. Now, his reasoning I disagree with. The principle of it, I do believe so, because it's just like, you know, you take us in the regular workplace. Once we sign that contract to get hired or whatever, our obligations and our duties, once we're no longer with that company, guess what? Your ID don't work, your badge, you don't get past security points anymore. You know what I mean? You don't get paid. So the same way that they can't profit off of me, I shouldn't be able to profit off of them. You know what I mean? Once I'm, gone, so to speak. I don't think that it should be for perpetuity. Like, I remember a cat that I knew that actually played for Carolina. He showed me like his scholarship that got offered. And back then, before the NIL, it says that we own your name, image, and likeness to infinity. It's literally in writing. This is back during the day where, they was able to make money off these college games, but you couldn't get nothing. You couldn't get nothing for your jersey sales. You couldn't get nothing from the college games. That's why I shout out to the old Banner brothers back then, way back then, starting, almost, I compared it almost like Kurt Flood. Somebody has to be the one to pave the way that everybody else could benefit from. And I think those people get lost in the sauce, so to speak, as far as context. But I think it's egregious that he would even ask them. And people say, well, yeah, because they know, people that know me personally know I'm all about black rights and all that there. Racism is a real thing, but it doesn't mean that I hate white people or nothing like that there. But the difference is, I don't think that he has a leg to stand on, because the different things that I've seen too, they always bring up Joe Burrow. The difference is, Joe Burrow went undefeated and won a national championship. So I understand Joe Burrow, who not want nobody, or LSU for honoring the fact that he like I said, he played there. Jayden Daniels went there for 1 year.
Yeah.
Like, other than Colorado with Travis and we know that was all about Dion and Shador. You know what I mean? Nobody should be getting, especially at an institution like LSU. I don't think nobody should have the right to say, well, look, nobody could ever use my number again. Now you can say you can't use my name or you can't sell my jerseys or my posters and profit off of my name, image, and likeness. But as a number, just think about it. Even in the NBA, when in the game of football, period, no matter what level, how often do you see somebody with a number retired?
Yeah.
It's very rare because you have that many more people on the roster that you need these numbers. You very rarely see where anybody gets their number retired in football unless you're one of the greats of the greats. And you can't prove how great you are in 1 year.
Yeah, and one thing about the number situation is they haven't used Joe Burrow's number, but also they haven't retired it.
Exactly.
But Joe Burrow, when they was asking him the other day on media day, like, how do you feel? He's like, honestly, I don't even think about it.
Exactly.
He's like, I'm in the NFL. Like, I'm focused on getting to a Super Bowl. I'm focused on the playoffs. And he's like, yeah, he's like, the head coach told me that as long as he was there, that nobody would wear the number 9.
Mm-hmm.
But he said it wasn't something like a contract or anything in writing. And when it comes to Jayden Daniels, he was never told that nobody would wear number 5 again. He was just, they said, okay, thank you, and the cease and desist wasn't for the number, because you can't put a cease and desist on the number because now, because there's so many players, a lot of times on the team, there's more than one player wearing a number.
Absolutely.
So what he sent that cease and desist was for LSU to take his image down all over everywhere, and this is the thing. To me, he dumb for saying that, because when you remove him from LSU, where he won a Heisman at and all that stuff, you now remove his image. Guess what's going to happen? Them LSU people are going to forget about him. So that's actually going to take money out of his pocket.
I think it's way too, I agree, because I think it's way too early in his career. And why does these even matter? And let me ask you this. Is this part of what we've been talking about, even with the last segment? Is this because it sounds like, the more and more I think about it, it sounds like this is something that was brought upon about who? His mother. If you're playing for the Washington NFL team, because I never say that name, it's so whack, but I ain't gonna be disrespectful. But it's like, dude, why do you care what they're doing to LSU? You're supposed to be preparing for this season in Washington.
Yeah.
What difference do it make what's going on over there? It just sounds like this is something that his mom want to trip off. We find it disrespectful that they would use. You wasn't tripping off that before. Why does it matter now? And you're moved on. You're in a whole different situation.
Yeah, that's the thing. I don't think Jayden Daniels, he's getting all the heat because they've been hammering him on Twitter, social media. Like, I saw one that it said the Buffalo Bills was going to go to the Super Bowl 5 times in a row instead of 4, but they wanted to make sure the 5 was reserved for Jayden Daniels. And I'm sitting here like, he is being slammed, but I think this is a situation where he has to have the conversation with his mother. Like, hey, like,
you're doing too much.
It wasn't that big. Like, we're making millions, like literally making millions. And you see his father is really active. He's always coached him and all that. And I know the parents wasn't married, but they were like in a long time relationship. And I think when he started coaching is when they kind of like, separated as far as like a relationship. But I just think that sometimes you have to have conversations with the people around you, because right now what happened, it hurt his stock, and now people, you're the face of the Jayden Daniels organization. You're the face of it. So it don't matter if your PR person do this, your manager do this, anything that they do negative falls on him.
Yep.
Because you're the face. So I think that's one thing that he needs to he, and you know what? They probably already had, him and his mom probably already had that conversation. You know, but of
Well,
course,
she my mother. What am I gonna do? How am I gonna tell my mom? Like, dude, that's what you got to do. It's called tough love.
yeah, like it's one thing is like, you know, at the end of the day, what's the difference between $3 million and $3.2 million? Is, you know, when you get up that high, $200,000 ain't really that, you know, that's something you can finesse the tax code and write off, you know. But I just think that he needs to, I think it needs to be a lesson to a lot of parents like coming through the ranks now, about to go off to college. If you want your number retired, what needs to be on your resume is a national championship, a Heisman, and an undefeated season. Unless you do something like Travis Hunter did, play both sides, more snaps than anybody, you know, and you literally change the football team. Shador, I like Shador, but ain't no way his number should have been retired.
I agree.
You know, like you never won a bowl game. Like it's just certain things, but you know, that's for another situation. I know his father is nobody's gonna advocate, just like LeVar Ball says. People try to dog out LeVar Ball. He had 3 sons that played in the NBA. They may not have had long storied careers, but he still got his 3 boys to the NBA.
And didn't
Like
care how we felt about it.
And the last time I've seen something like that happen, what was that player back in the days? Rick Barry. He had Brent Barry. He had what's the son that won the slam dunk contest?
Yeah, Rick. You had Brett. You had Brett is the one that won the dunk contest, isn't it? He was the taller one.
He was the youngest.
Okay, then you had the guard. You had a guard. It was 3. It was, I want to say it was 3 of them too, though.
It was and the father. You know, but now you have a story where you have a black man that's the father, and everybody is going after him, even black folks. And it's like nobody going after Rick Barry. You know, he was known for doing the free throws underhand. You remember that?
Yeah, shot 80%. I was watching the special the last week with that. That's why I was like, it's crazy.
Yeah, but that's one of the things I just think that, you know, I hope is just a lesson for Jayden or other people that's watching him. To like, there's sometimes like everybody's not going to be perfect. Your manager is not going to be perfect. But instead of like going hard in the paint, just communicate. I think that right there can like solve a lot of stuff, but he definitely needs to get some PR people, like more than just his mom. You know, he needs to get some more PR people because, you know, I understand he wants everything to stay in the family, but he just needs to make sure the family is trained up on, you know, on their responsibility.
And the other 2 brothers was John and Drew Barry.
Okay.
John and Drew Barry made the league as well.
Yeah. I remember he dumped from the free throw line and he had his warm-up jacket on.
So let me ask you this though, because you know, and I like I said, I don't like that, but to me, I think that it's hard to ignore race. Let's be clear, especially in the United States, right? Is it more or less? Do you think that not saying that this situation is racist, but do you believe that the major difference is when it comes to LeVar, people don't like the way that he presents himself. And just because you don't like the way that a dude presents himself, does that give you the right to be, you know what I mean, so harsh and critiquing him? Like Rick Barry, he wasn't in your face with it and all that there. Now I seen Rick Barry. Matter of fact, it was Soul Power. Is a documentary that Dr. J did real good that came on Prime, and Rick Barry was talking about the ABA and his relationships and all that kind of stuff there, and and from when I seen it, from just seeing that depiction of Rick Barry was hands on too. Like Rick Barry carried himself like what us, but it wasn't not overly popularized because the public didn't see that side of him. Where LeVar Ball is in your face.
We have social media now. Back when Rick Barry was there, he never had email. So I think with that, because I used to watch Ball in the Family. I love watching it. I love how they interact. I love how they snap at each other, all those things. But sometimes we just have to, we have to look at the main goal. His goal was to hype his boys up, to make everybody dissect his boys, their game. And he did his job.
Yeah, mission accomplished.
Shaquille O'Neal, I think his son didn't get drafted, but did he play with any teams?
Nah, well, I think he made it to the G League at one time. He made one of the summer leagues, but I haven't seen him signing anywhere. Or matter of fact, I think Shaq got him a job with Reebok now on their board of whatever.
I know Shaq had posted a conversation he had with his son, and he was like, you know what? You don't have to have basketball to be successful.
Exactly.
He's like, you have this great mind, a business mind, and he's like, that's why I busted my butt and missed all those birthday parties and all that. So you wouldn't have to do that. And he's like, you got all your, you can have some businesses and I can finance the businesses, because now they talking about he's trying to on the group to in the group that's getting a majority stake of the Lakers, so he doing this thing. So he's setting, some kids got to realize when your parents lay a certain foundation, take it, it's only going to make your life easy. But I just appreciate, I don't hear the men. That's a podcast, the clip that I played earlier. That's a podcast with the fathers talking.
Yeah.
So it was basically locker room talk. But out in public, outside of them just being in that locker room, you're not going to hear them complaining about being overshadowed by the NBA.
Exactly.
There's a time and place. And I think that's the difference between a lot of the men, between the men's league and the women's league. The men do it more in private, but the women, they're going to make their stand. Like when it was at the All-Star game, they had the shirts on that says, pay us what you owe us. And then the game was trash, no defense, give us a product,
What do you mean what you owe us? Like when the NBA has been carrying you for I don't know how many years. The NBA after 30 years of existence, they just now turning a profit. So what do you mean the money that you owe us? We don't owe you anything. They lucky they didn't become like the ABA, become a defunct team 15 years ago or 20 years ago. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I just think that's one of those things that it's not, there's going to be a certain point to where they're going to have to let the skill level bring in the fans and not trying to gaslight people into coming in or to support. If your game is good, people are going to come.
They're going to come.
You don't got to pressure people. Oh, the guys, the male players need to come and they need to. if it ain't good enough where you have to sell it like that, where you're no longer selling, but you're trying to pressure people into it, pressure for support, pressure for sponsors. To me, the focus is the wrong place. Like you can't have, like they play 42 games a season. Their season is half the season of the NBA, and they bring in $6 billion less in revenue a year. Like they have zero revenue. And then when I hear some of the WNBA players talking about, well, we don't expect to get paid what the men pay. We just want the same revenue share that they have. And they're like, y'all don't have any revenue. And then when last year, when they was about to start creating revenue, that got eaten up by the private planes. That's the thing. Like they're spending money that's not even made yet.
Exactly. Yeah.
Like they said it's going to cost $25 million to have for you guys to fly private, and they was only above water like 12 million. So it was going to be the first year they had a profit, but those private planes did it. Now they're demanding to stay in better hotels and stuff, which is going to cost more. They're demanding to have to play in the arenas that the men play in, but you're halfway filling the Coliseum that you at now.
Mm-hmm.
The only games that get a high crowd is them dang on games with Caitlin Clark, Flau'jae Johnson. She brings a lot of people. Reese, Angel Reese, she brings some people, but they're not WNBA fans. It's their fans, that followed them from college. So I just think that the WNBA, they're not taking advantage of what's in front of them, and they're trying to, like, the women was bragging about the collective bargaining agreement, and they literally, for 6 months, the deal that they signed wasn't no better. Matter of fact, it was worse, because they said, okay, yeah, we're making this money, but then in the collective bargaining agreement, it's going from 42 games to 57, and your paying increase. You locked it in for 8 years. So they're making bad decisions even with that. But I just hope I hope they turn it around and start focusing less on, off the court and more on the court, because I think, I think there's definitely a lot of talent. It's being overshadowed
by everything else. And I'm not trying to sound like a woman basher, but it's funny to me, like what we're talking about, what we wrapping up with, but you don't see this from the G League. You don't see them players like, we need to stay in better hotels, we need better travel accommodations. You don't see it in AAA basketball. AAA baseball. They're professional athletes, but you don't see no AAA teams talking about, why don't we get treated like the big team? And you got to work your way up to that level. Like what they tell LeBron in them a couple years, shut up and play ball. You know what I mean? If you're, like, to your point, if your talent and your product is out there, people will come. I forgot Field of Dreams. If you build it, they will come. You know what I mean? If you get your quality of basketball out there, where you got women out here dunking, not just dunking in a game, but actually on people, that's gonna bring people in. So just get the quality of your game up. Leave all the politics and stuff aside, and work on the quality of your game, not quantity. You don't want to bring in all these fans for all the wrong reasons just to support women. It's like, I use hip hop as an example, right? Of course, is Vanilla Ice going to be considered one of the 1,000 greatest rappers ever? No, but because he's a white man in a dominated African American art form, of course he's going to sell, because they're going to support it just because he's white. It has nothing to do at all with his skills, his rhyming skills, ability, and nothing else. Eminem was a shoe-in because white people are going to buy him just because he's the anomaly in a field like that there. So the way that you overcome that is by getting your weight up. You know what I mean? Yeah. You start to like get not fans of, like you say, fans of people, but when you get out the quality, oh man, yo, did you see the way that girl crossed up such and such? Hey, that's how you get the W. That's how you get fans as a league, not as individuals. Get your quality up.
Yeah, definitely. But I try to keep everything about an hour, and we've gone over, but I definitely want to have you back to react to some more videos. And anybody that's watching, any of the viewers, please make sure that you subscribe, but not just subscribe. You have to hit the thumbs up because YouTube has changed their algorithm to where you can subscribe, but you're not going to get notifications unless you liked the last video. Because I think when you had your show, you had your podcast last night, and I saw it like 30 minutes after it ended. And I was like, I'm not getting these notifications. Gotcha. So that's the thing right there. Cause I always try to be, I always try to tune into you, but I'm like, hold on, I know he got the podcast. But that's what I found out. I did research and they said, so make sure, on your podcast, make sure you encourage people to hit the thumbs up too, because you have to do that. Like I think every 2 weeks.
Yeah, they always changing stuff with it as far as YouTube, and it's so much to the game that goes on behind the scene that people don't understand. But yeah, everything is a factor. Again, thanks for having me, and it was a pleasure to be here and chop it up with you. Get to return the favor. You've been a guest on my show several times, and I appreciate it, man. I don't take it lightly. But I support you in everything that you do, man.
I appreciate
Keep on being a great dude. Like I said earlier, we talked about it earlier, but just the remarkable job that you done with Sam. I remember that's how I know you, from our sons going to high school together. But I always seen you hands on. I joked with you on one of my shows as it wrapped up. When I first saw you, I didn't even realize that you was Sam Dad. I thought you was like a photographer for the News and Observer, because you was always at all the football games, all the basketball games, taking pictures, being supportive and all that there. So shout out to you, man.
I appreciate you. That's what people are like, what in the world? Like even his coaches was like, who is this guy that's always on, like he in the end zone? He on our sideline.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
I couldn't stay in the stands. I was out there on the field. I was like, hey, if they want to treat me like media because my camera lens and stuff, I said, I'm going to act like media.
No lies told. Well, I swore I thought you was with the media.
But I definitely appreciate it. And as we end this stream, if you can just stay on for me and we can chop it up a little bit.
Okay, cool.
All right. Want to let the viewers know that after next week, there will be a break because our standard poodle is having a litter, and that has been hectic. Getting x-rays, radiographs, all that stuff together, and just trying to make sure she's healthy. But definitely stay tuned. We will have replays in place of those. But y'all enjoy the rest of y'all week, and hopefully I'll see y'all next week if time does open up.